Hi, my name is Heratch, product specialist at Yamaha. I am here in Pittsburgh at N-Stuff Music, and it's my pleasure to show you the new Yamaha CP. But first, the Yamaha CP comes in two versions. There's a 73 keys and a CP88. So what I have in front of me right now is the CP88. So before I take you through the layout of the land, basically where the buttons and the knobs do, I'm going to play a few instruments, and then I'll explain what is going on the instruments. First, the piano. Next is an electric piano. Next, one of the other sounds, such as an organ. All right, so let's get through it and explain to you what the sections do on the CP88. First, you have the piano section, and you'll realize that all the sections are almost equal. So once you understand one section, it's really simple to apply it to the other sections. So let me explain to you what the knobs in each sections do. First, you have the piano category. So in the piano category, you have the knob that chooses between a grand piano, an upright piano, a CP, and a layered piano. And within each of those categories, you use the rocker switch, in this case it's the yellow one, to switch between different piano sounds. For example, the first one, 01, is our famous CFX grand piano. Number 2 is our Bösendorfer Imperial piano, and those two pianos sound completely different. So the way it works is, again, you choose the knob here, the encoder, to choose the category, and with the rocker switch, you can choose the different variations of that particular sound. Next, you'll have the left and right split. So this particular button has 3 positions. Number 1, when both of them are lit, that means the piano plays across the entire keyboard. When you press it once, the left is lit. That means based on the split point, it's only going to play on the left-hand side of the keyboard, like so. Oppositely, when the right is lit, now it's going to be on the right-hand side. And as you guess, this is going to be great for splitting the sound. So for example, you can have a bass and a piano on the right-hand side. We'll get to that. So if I press it 1/3 time, it goes back to left and right, meaning it's going to play throughout the entire keyboard. To the right of that, there's the octave. Sometimes you need to shift the octave of the instrument. This takes it to -2 or +2, and then if you press them both at the same time, it goes back to 0. It's that simple. Below that, there's the volume control for the piano. So in the case of mixing piano and strings, for example, you have dedicated volume controls for each one. In this case, this is the piano. There's nothing, and then I bring the volume up according to what I want it to be. To the right of that, there is the tone. So it's a great way to adjust the tonality of the piano without having to go into equalization. It's a simple knob that you turn it from left to right, and you can certainly, by trying it yourself, you'll hear the difference to how that knob actually changes the sound of the piano. I'll try actually in this environment to play something really quick so you can hear the difference. I'll play the same passage and I'll turn the knob from left to right to the extreme. Hopefully you'll hear a subtle difference. This is not a huge difference, but again, you want a very subtle change in the piano tone because you're changing the tone a little bit, not too much. So here is all the way to the left, all the way to the right. Hopefully you heard the difference. To the right of that, there is a damper resonance on and off. You'll realize at some point within each of those categories of instruments, it's going to have its own effect processors. Think of it as tom boxes for that. Especially when we get to the e-pianos, it will make a lot more sense. But in the case of the piano, we do have an effect processor. And to turn it simply, you have the button that turns it on and off. And then you have the choices. In this case, there are 4 different types of effects that you can add to the acoustic piano, such as compressor. And then to hear it more, to exaggerate what the effect does, I'll use the depth knob to go from one extreme to the other. So here is all the way down. Here's the compressor all the way up. That I'm sure you definitely heard. And then if you press the button where the effects are, then you actually toggle through the different 4 effect processors that you can apply to the piano. And again, you can turn it on and off, and you can adjust the amount of that effect by using the depth knob. Last but not least is the on and off switch. This is a great way when you're on stage that you want to turn on and off a section of the CP88 by flicking the on and off switch. It's that simple. So that's the piano section. So what you've learned on the piano section, actually a lot of it's going to apply to the e-piano, but there's going to be specific things that are specific for the e-piano. Effects is going to be one of them. So again, I can turn on the e-piano by using the on and off switch. As I explained, with this big knob here, you'll have different types of e-pianos, from Rode to Whirlies to clavinet to DX e-pianos. Within each of those categories, again, in this case, it's the red rocker. Then you can choose different types of Rhodes. For example, this is a 78, this is a 75, this is a 73, and so on and so forth. And by the way, you can tell exactly what those are by looking at the screen, and the screen actually indicates to you what the name of that sound is. But we'll get to this section toward the end. So let's go back to the first 78 Rode. Similarly, you have the left and right split, as I explained earlier. Similarly, you'll have the octaves, as I explained, exactly the same. You have the volume for the piano as well, the same. You have the tone as well, which is similar. You can adjust the tone characteristic of the piano. And then, of course, you have the on and off switch. Now it gets different. Now we're going to talk about the differences. As I mentioned to you earlier, the e-piano is going to have different types of effects and things that are related more specifically to the e-piano more than acoustic piano. For example, on the acoustic piano, we had the damper resonance effect block, so I can turn it off. Well, in the case of the e-piano, I have the drive on and off. So that means here's the Rode 78 without the drive on. Here's with a drive on, and then you guessed it, the knob above that will change the amount of that drive. So again, I'll do an exaggeration all the way from nothing to the extreme so you can actually hear the difference. So the same passage again with and without, or I shouldn't say with or without, but less and more. So here we go. Slightly changing the passage, but I think you heard exactly what I'm trying to do here. So let me turn that off. So here where the e-pianos will have its own effects that are completely different. I mentioned to you on the piano, you have 4 to choose from the compressor to chorus, distortion, drive. But now we have 2, actually think of those as actually 2 stomp boxes for the e-piano. So the first one, again, to turn things on, there's a button that you turn on and off. So this is the first effect. So within that effect, it's on. And you have 6 of them, and you'll use this button to toggle between the 6 type of effects, all the way from tremolo to ring modulation to touch wah, etc. Actually, let me try the touch one, see what that sounds like. Oh, that's pretty cool. Now, if you want to increase that amount or emphasize that effect, you can use the depth and the rate. In the case, for example, of the auto pan, And here is with all the parameters at 0. Here's the depth. You heard the rate is a bit slow, but now I can increase the rate for more obvious change. Slow it down a bit. That's just perfect. That's awesome. So again, you use those two knobs to change the quality of the effect. So let me turn that off. And the next effect processor is right underneath that. So I turn it on. Now there are 6 different type of effects from the first 6 that I mentioned. So in this case, there's chorus 1, chorus 2, flange, phaser, etc. So those are completely different than the previous ones that I just mentioned. Similarly, you turn it on. You use this button to toggle between the 6 different types of effects, and the 2 encoders here adjust the parameters for that effect. So let's do maybe a phaser. So here are with the parameters at 0. There, as you can see, there is a slight phaser effect engaged, but let's exaggerate that so you can actually hear it more. Here's the depth. It's really slow. Let's speed that up. Oh, that's more like it. Awesome. So that covers basically the entire section of the E piano. And later on, toward the end, I'm going to bring them all together to create like a combination of those 2 sounds layered and splits. So turn that off. The last section, we call it the subsection. The reason we call it the subsection is because this is the area where you'll find your basses, your organs, your pads, and so on and so forth. In fact, there is one category with the same knob. It's called the others, because we plan on actually releasing additional voices with every OS update. So the operating system, when we update the instrument, it will always include actually new content, new sounds, which is very unique to us in the CP world. This is great news because now we can actually add more sound based on input from you and the dealers to add the different types of sounds in here. So similarly, I don't want to go through this from scratch, but you'll understand that this knob goes through the categories. The rocker switch goes through the different type. The left and right split is for such. Octave, same thing. Volume, exactly what I mentioned previously. And the tone, it has its own effect. Now, the only difference is here, because sometimes you might use like pads, for example, in the case of such, I have some changes on the behavior of the sound by using things like attack or release. And then right underneath that, there is the dedicated effect processor. Turn it off, choose the effect processor, and use those 2 encoders to change the parameters. So that we covered the 3 types of instruments in the CP88. There's acoustic piano, E piano, and the sub. Awesome. Last but not least, of course, there's the effects section. And the way the effects section works, let's talk about the last part, which is the EQ. That's straightforward. You have the highs and lows and the sweepable mid, and you can turn it on and off with the button. You have the reverb. Again, you have the similar switch on and off, and the time and the depth of that reverb. You have the delay section is a little bit more sophisticated and more involved because you have 2 types of delays. One is the analog delay, one is the digital delay, and of course with its own parameters to change, such as time, feedback, and depth. But here you can change the assignment to where the delay is going. So if this button is pressed and those LEDs are on, all of them, that means any changes that I do in this section, in the effects, it will apply to all 3. If I press it once, it will go to the piano. As you can see, the piano is turned on. So now it's only going to affect the piano. Next, E piano, it will be just for the E piano, the sub, and it will be just for the sub sounds. And finally, when I press it one last time, it will be for all 3 of them. So with the last few moments that I have to talk to you about the CP88 is once you select your sounds, change the octaves, set up in splits, change the effects, turn it on, however you wish, anything you do on the instrument, to save that as your own live set, preset, it's as simple as pressing the store button, choose a location, and then press this button, which is a push button encoder When you press it, now it's stored the entire setting of the instrument. The instrument also has XLR outputs. It's great for stage because you don't need a DI box. It plugs directly into your PA system. Thank you so much for watching. Please come to the store and check it out yourself. Again, I'm Heratch, Yamaha product specialist in Pittsburgh at N Stuff Music. Thank you.